Hello, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk Live here on this Tuesday. My name is Mark Karstens, and to my left is Mason Polk and Noah Rummel. And today we'll be going into our sports topics. And now we'll take a break and be right back. All right, everybody, we're back. Our first topic today will be our predictions on the NBA MVP. So I guess I'll start with my prediction for this year's NBA MVP. And my prediction to win this award is Giannis. Giannis Antetokounmpo. I just can't really refute the fact that he has been the best player so far in this 2018-2019 NBA season. I have some stats here to kind of back up how dominant he really has been. 27.2 points per game, 12.7 rebounds a game for Giannis, 1.5 blocks a game, and 6 assists a game too. So he's been really good as a passer as well. And I just see Giannis as being a difference maker both on the defensive end as well as the offensive end. The Bucks, I mean, they would not have the best record in the NBA without him. They're 46-14 overall record and ranked top 5 in both offensive and defensive efficiency in the NBA. So with all those things into account, I would say Giannis. How about for you, Mason?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm going to have to agree with you on that one, Mark. Giannis is my top. You know, we got pretty much done with top 3 right now in the NBA with Giannis, James Harden, and Paul George. And for me, you know, we can talk about stats, records, but for me it really comes down to game impact that the players have. And Giannis, you know, when he sits, they did have a win last night over the Bulls, but it's the Bulls, you know, top 3 lottery team right now. The last time Giannis sat, they were blown up by 20 to the Magic. And when you look at the other candidates for it, you know, with the Rockets and James Harden, he sat out the other night, and they managed to beat the Warriors anyway with Chris Paul putting up 19 assists. And, you know, Paul George, you know, he's a great player as well, but his co-star is Russell Westbrook, who honestly is another MVP candidate year in and year out, not this year quite as much, but you just look at the teams that they have around him. Giannis has that impact because he does have one all-star teammate in Chris Middleton, but the only reason that he became an all-star is because Giannis took that team to the #1 seed. James Harden has Chris Paul, who, when he's not hurt, is a perennial all-star. And like I said, Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Giannis just has the biggest impact of all the players, and that's why he's my MVP. Easy. How about you, Noah?
Yeah, I mean, you can say we're all kind of biased here because we're from Wisconsin, but then again, Giannis is kind of like, he is that MVP, that he's the backbone of the team. Like you said, when Harden wasn't in the game against the Warriors, actually the odds flipped, and Giannis actually took over in the odds of winning the MVP for a slight amount of time. But still, I think the odds goes Harden, and then Giannis, and then Paul George, and I think that it should be Giannis on the top of that. And I think that there's still quite a bit of season left for that to change, and I think it can change. So,
I think another thing is the one thing Harden really had pushing him towards him, that #1 spot, was his 30-point streak that he had going. I believe it was 21 or 22 games. And I'll admit, that's an incredible streak. You know, there's scoring numbers you don't see since Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. You know, they're incredible numbers. But broke last night. He didn't score, I believe, recently anyway, he didn't score 30th point game. So once that streak goes out, I think because everyone just loves that offensive league, all that scoring and everything, if he's not having all those games to kind of back up his case, I think that takes a hit for him, and again, will bring Giannis up a little more, which is exactly what I'm looking for.
So yeah, no, I think we can all agree that Giannis, we all were in agreement that Giannis has been the best player so far this year in the NBA. So now let's get into our next topic, and we'll be discussing MLB signings and news. So the first first news that I wanted to talk about with baseball was the signing of Manny Machado. Manny Machado this past Wednesday signed the biggest free agent contract I saw in American sports history. So all of sports too, with the 10-year, $300 million deal. And I don't know. I just think that's too much money to give to one player, personally. And there's also, for me, there's some question marks specifically with Machado, with his character, both on and off the field. So for me, because of that, I just would have been leery of making this deal. So I'm not totally in agreement with it. I don't know. How about you, Mason and Noah?
You want to take this, Noah?
Yeah, Machado's a scumbag. I think we can all agree on that. Let's just get that out of the way. They said that the Padres did it, though, they're trying to kind of build around him. They're trying to get more people into their stands. They're trying to fill it. I don't know if this was the answer. Also, this was the second total biggest contract. Giancarlo Stanton, didn't he have, I think he had one for $325, but that was an extension, so it's different. And also, this is a little tangent, that Bryce Harper was recently, as of today, possibly offered a over $300 million deal for the Phillies. So do with that what you want.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I'm not a Manny Machado fan myself. I think, honestly, Padres might be a perfect place for him to go and step on all the ankles he wants on an irrelevant team. So good for them for signing him. They'll probably end up regretting it. Definitely, we talked about his character and everything. But Bryce Harper, I'm not surprised he waited this long to pick a team, because with Manny Machado also being a big-time free agent, you see it every year in the NFL. Like, whichever quarterback signs the newest deal gets the biggest contract. And, you know, when you had Khalil Mack and Aaron Donald kind of waiting one another out to see who would sign first, you know, the next guy up always gets the biggest deal. So it doesn't surprise me that a superstar like him would wait it out just a little bit longer, just so he can guarantee that he would end up being the highest paid player.
And then another MLB signing that I wanted to talk about was Mike Moustakas with a one-year deal with the Brewers. He signed for the 2019 season for $10 million. I think that's a great signing. I think that was a really good job by David Stearns. He didn't really have to spend all that much money to keep Moustakas, you know, bringing him back. I mean, he's a really good player for $10 million. I don't know what you think, Mason. And
I agree with that. Definitely Milwaukee, you know, you see it year in and year out. They're the smallest market in baseball and one of the smallest markets actually in sports. So it's hard to get any of those real good free agents to sign. And even if it's just one-year deal, I like the fact that we're able to keep those players in once in a while. You see it so many, as a Brewers fan, you see it so much where we build up these nice players and then they just want to sign elsewhere. So I'm happy with the signing, honestly. I love Moose.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. There were a couple they got some kind of flack because they could have taken other second basemen, but then again, we had him for the year, and a lot of Brewers fans like to hold on to our players. We get really sentimental, even for a guy that's been here for a year. So ultimately, I think that he belongs here another year. I think it was a good signing. People are skeptical, but I think that he'll get rid of that kind of skepticism as he goes on to play second base. So.
And then the last baseball topic, we kind of touched on it, but where specifically do you think Bryce Harper will go? Because I think he'll probably go to the Phillies or the Philadelphia Phillies or the Dodgers is kind of my thought. I don't know for Mason and for you, Noah.
I honestly haven't been looking into it too much. I don't get that much into the MLB offseason, but I think Phillies, if they're going to give him all that, $325 million, you know, people like to ridicule athletes for, you know, just going places for money, but when was the last time you turned down $325 million? So it's hard to walk away from something like that, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think Harper's going to be going where the money goes. So if that's the case with the Phillies, I think that's what's going to happen. Otherwise, you said the Dodgers. I think what was the other team that was still in? I think it was the Dodgers and the Phillies were the two main ones, and they said that maybe the Dodgers will get into a bidding war, but it's all skeptical on if this deal is actually happening. So who knows?
All right, so let's get into a little bit the Wisconsin versus Northwestern game. So the Badgers on Sunday, or it was on Saturday, played Northwestern. Got a close win. It was 69-65 over Northwestern. And for the Badgers, I was really impressed with Ethan Happ and Brad Davison. I don't know what you guys kind of thought of the game.
You know, it was nice, you know, picking up a win after we had a couple back-to-back tough losses. We had to play at Michigan State and at Michigan, so we didn't win either of those. But you know, when they're top 10 teams, each of them, you can't expect to take all of those. So it was nice to get a little bit of bounce-back win. Honestly, Ethan Happ, he's the one thing that's been irritating me lately that he finally broke. Over the course of 4 games, he missed 11 straight free throws. It's hard to miss that many free throws if you ask me, especially out of a player that is honestly one of the best in the country. If he could hit his free throws, he'd probably be averaging 5 or 6 more points per game. So you would like to see that, but you know, he hit 2 for 4, which 50% is honestly above his season average, which is sad, but he finally broke his streak. So I like to you know, hope that can lead to something.
All right, so we'll go to break, and we'll be right back with predictions for the NBA for college basketball awards.
Cross brings you a weekly student newscast. Important news, movie critiques, weather forecasts, sports highlights, and local interviews. UWL's own WMCM, run by the students, for the students. Every Thursday at 4:30 on Campus Channel 200 and Charter Channel 989.
Are you a movie fanatic? Tune in on WMCM TV's Screening Room, Tuesdays at 2:45 or 4:30. You can watch on Channel 200 and Charter 989. See you on Tuesdays for Screening Room.
All right, so now let's get into talking about college basketball awards. So the first award I wanted to kind of discuss was the John Wooden Award. So for me, the John Wooden Award, I think I'd have to give it to Zion Williamson. He's just been so dominant for Duke as a freshman. The most dominant freshman college basketball player I've personally ever seen. He's just putting up insane numbers, almost 22 points a game, nearly 9 rebounds a game. You know, he's 6'7", 285 pounds. He's a really good defender. I feel he's a very underrated ball handler too, and he can dunk on people, you know, just at will almost. He's just an amazing player. I don't know, Mason, and what do you think?
So yeah, I got to agree right now. Pending, we got to put an asterisk there with his injury. If he misses an extended amount of time and he's just not playing, I find it hard to give it to him then. But if he just misses a couple games, come back to the form that he was in, then I would agree to give it to him. The last time that the award actually went to a freshman was Anthony Davis, and the only other time before that was Kevin Durant. So those are, winning it as a freshman, that'd be some incredible company that he would be joining. And I don't know if he's going to turn into the NBA player of that caliber, but right now, just watching him, he is on another level in the college basketball world. Yeah, definitely everything, all of his skills that you mentioned. Right now, I would give it to him, but again, that's pending his injury status.
Yeah, I agree with you. If he milks this injury a little bit and doesn't come back just to kind of wait it out, doesn't want to hurt himself too bad, then I would actually give it to R.J. Barrett, because his stat line is actually very similar to Zion's, and it's kind of miraculous because they're on the same team. He's actually averaging more points, 1 less rebound, and he's shooting slightly less from the field. But yeah, I think we all have to give it to Zion just because he is that dominant factor. You can kind of see that too with him going out. When Duke played UNC, it kind of turned into a one-sided game without him. So I think you have to give it to Zion because he is so much of an it factor on the court.
Yeah, definitely. You can see the other night when Duke played Syracuse, you know, they were able to bounce back, led by R.J. Barrett without Zion there. So that definitely says a lot to him as well.
All right, so now we'll get into the Bob Cousy Award winner, which goes to the best point guard in college basketball. And for me, my top choice was Carson Edwards. He's been really good for Purdue. He's scoring he's scoring about 23 points a game. I just feel like he does a lot of things for Purdue. He shoots the ball well, passes the ball well, does a lot of things. And Purdue's a top 15 team in the nation, and without him, there's no way I see them being that good and even ranked. So yeah. I really like Carson Edwards.
I can definitely see that. And one thing I try to do when looking at these awards is, because I watch so much Big Ten basketball, being a Wisconsin fan, I try to remember that I see them play a lot versus other players. But my personal choice of the award for the Bob Cousy Award is Ja Morant from Murray State. This man is averaging around 24 points a game, as well as close to 10.5 assists, which is about 3 assists higher than the second best in the country. So that just says a lot about him. Murray State, obviously, not a Power 5 school or anything like that. They're maybe not playing the competition that someone like a Purdue would, but still, you look at some of the previous winners of this award, they're not always from that big school. They are a lot of times just these players that are able to put up these big-time numbers and show off their skills.
Yeah, I also had Ja Morant. I haven't watched a lot of Murray State basketball because, honestly, I don't know where I would watch a lot of Murray State basketball, but his stat line is pretty incredible, like Mason said, and his draft board, I think he's on the mock drafts at about like 2 on some, or like number 1 for point guards. So, I mean, pretty good for Murray State, and that's just good for basketball. So stats don't lie sometimes, you know.
All right, so now I'll move on to talking about the Julius Erving Award, which goes to the best small forward in college basketball. And for me, there was a couple names that I thought of, but I think DeAndre Hunter is a name that I really liked. He's a really good defender for Virginia, who's a really good team, a top 3 team in the nation. He's scoring about 15 points a game. The last game, he was a huge part of why they won. He scored 26 points. They wouldn't have won without him the last game that they played. I can't remember who it was against, but DeAndre Hunter is a very good player for Virginia and on a really good team.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing, that last comment you made, on a really good team, and that is obvious, and he was a player that I looked at as well. But for me personally, my pick goes to Caleb Martin, who is small forward out in Nevada, which isn't a powerhouse team year in and year out like a Virginia might be, but they are currently ranked number 12, and Caleb Martin is actually leading his team in scoring, rebounding, and blocks, where a lot of the other players I saw for this award weren't even necessarily the best forwards on their team, so I don't know if I could give them the best forward in the country. It's actually kind of interesting. Caleb was joined by his twin brother Clay out in Nevada, but Caleb is definitely the best player on that team, and he's leading them to one of the best records they've seen in a while.
My forward that I would pick is, I know this is going to be biased again, but I'm going to say Ethan Happ. He's been putting up some good points. He's been kind of like the workhorse of the team almost. Like, he's kind of putting it on himself. I know his free throws suck, and I can't get over that either. But 17.7 points a game or percentage. He's shooting 54% from the field. I just think that he's an overall good player.
All right, so now let's go on to the Karl Malone Award, which goes to the best power forward in college basketball. And I have Zion again, but if he's hurt and if he doesn't finish out the year, another name that I actually really liked as I looked at some stats was Mike Daum, actually, for South Dakota State, kind of an underrated player. But he's done really well for South Dakota State. Is averaging almost 26 points a game, nearly 12 rebounds a game, and about 2 assists per game. And he's a really good player, even though he's kind of not on a great team. He's an NBA type talent and has done really well for South Dakota State.
Yeah, so this might go back on a little bit what I said earlier, but honestly, I'm giving this to Zion whether he comes back or not. When it came to the Wooden Award, that's up to every single player in the entire country, so I think you need to be top of the game beginning to end. But personally, for this award, first of all, power forward really isn't that much of a glamour position, so there aren't a ton of standout power forwards anymore. A lot of people who might play that position are, kind of flex players that can play at the 5 or the 3. But Zion, no matter what happens, I think he has just cemented himself as the best power forward that has played this entire college basketball season, even if he doesn't play another game the rest of the year.
I agree with the Zion Williamson choice because he just bullies kids. When he's in, he just bullies kids, and it's no getting around him. He's just that dominant on the court. It's just, I can't believe it. I'll get into it a little bit later about people comparing him to other great people, but I think he deserves it. Even if he doesn't play or if he sits out for a while, I still think he deserves it because he just proved himself so much this season already.
All right, so now I'll get into the last topic of college basketball here for our predictions of awards, and it's for the Coach of the Year award. So I had actually 2 names that I really liked. One was Kelvin Sampson with the Houston Cougars. Houston, has been remarkable this year. I would have never expected they're 26-1 on the year, record-wise, ranked 8th in the nation in all of college basketball. So he's obviously doing a great job as a coach to get them to be a top 10 team. And then another name that I had to put into the equation is Mark Few for Gonzaga. Gonzaga is the #1 team in the nation right now. They've been just dominating teams in their own conference and college basketball as a whole. So those 2 coaches for me have done a great job.
Yeah, actually, my pick currently is also Kelvin Sampson of Houston. If you look at it, it's his 5th season as the head coach there, which means that his seniors right now are his first group of players that he started to recruit. So these are the guys that he wanted to bring in to his team. And now look what they're doing when he's got his players, the guy he wants. If you look, past few years, they've improved. 2 years ago, they were bounced in the first round of NIT. Last year, they made it, I believe, to the 3rd round in the tournament. And now they're sitting at the 8th seed in the country. So that's all the players that he wanted playing for a great coach. I think they are, like you said, not 1 or 2 losses on the year. And they play in the American Conference. So you can say something about their competition, but he's my pick right now.
I'm just going to get this one off quick. Roy Williams, I think he's done a great job at meshing together the veterans like May and Johnson and getting it to work with Kobe White and Nasser Little. They're currently sitting at 22-5, so I think he's doing a good job. He also wears some pretty cool suits, so yeah, that's my pick.
Those are all great names for coaches. So we'll just take a break, and we'll be right back with more sports.
The University of Wisconsin-La Crosse brings you a weekly student newscast. Important news, movie critiques, weather forecasts, sports highlights, and local interviews. UWL's own WMCM, run by the students, for the students. Every Thursday at 4:30 on Campus Channel 200 and Charter Channel 989.
Are you a movie fanatic? Tune in on WMCM TV's Screening Room, Tuesdays at 2:45 or 4:30. You can watch on Channel 200 and Charter 989. See you on Tuesdays for Screening Room.
All right, now we'll get into our next sports topic for today, and that is Antonio Brown potentially, he hasn't gone to the Packers yet, but potentially could end up with the Packers. And I love the idea of having Antonio Brown be a part of the Packers and being on their team. And they have the luxury of 2 first-round picks, so they could trade one of the 2 first-round picks that they have, because they have one at 12 and one at 30. So if they traded the 30th overall pick, I don't want them to trade the 12th pick, but if they trade the 30th pick for Antonio Brown, they're not going to get a player as good as Antonio Brown at 30th overall. I just don't see a wide receiver or a tight end at 30th overall that's going to produce like Antonio Brown has. I have some stats too for Antonio Brown in 2018. He finished with 104 receptions, 1,297 yards, and 15 touchdowns, which led the NFL. And the Packers need a receiver that can catch touchdowns, that can build some camaraderie with Aaron Rodgers. And what better receiver than Antonio Brown? And thinking of the pairing between Antonio Brown and Davante Adams, it's just a dream scenario for me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know what you think, Noah.
Like you said, I think any Packer fan at least would love to see it. I don't think anyone's against it. Davante Adams needs to get a little bit pressure off of him, so if we bring another arsenal in for Rodgers, another threat, that'd be wonderful. The only thing that I'm skeptical about is I don't know how well Antonio Brown's personality and Aaron Rodgers' personality might mesh together. Might be a little power struggle, I don't know, because apparently I'd never doubt my quarterback, but he says that they might have a little bit of power struggle in Rodgers, so who knows?
Yeah, honestly, I also like the idea. Honestly, I would give up the 12 and the 30 to get Antonio Brown. I just think, especially in the NFL, draft picks are a lot of potential, but there's no guarantees. And, if you have that, again, Antonio Brown on the other side of Davante Adams, which will also open up Aaron Jones in the backfield. And also last year, we had Geronimo Allison. We've already said we're not re-signing Cobb and Valdez-Scantling. None of those guys were really ready to be a legit number 2. If we can pull in Antonio Brown and let one of them develop as a number 3 option in the offense, I think that would be the best for the Packers.
All right, so we'll get to our last topic today briefly, which is college basketball rankings. So the top 5 teams right now are Gonzaga, Virginia, Duke, Kentucky, and North Carolina. And a team that really surprised me looking in the top 25 was the Wofford Terriers. They're actually rated in the top 25. I don't know if I've ever seen like Wofford ever be rated in the top 25 before. So that was something that really stood out to me in the top 25. And then only one Pac-12 team, too, in the top 25 in Washington. So it's just been kind of a down year for the Pac-12. That was kind of another thing.
One thing I always look at is how the Big Ten are faring. We got Michigan State and Michigan, as we mentioned already, two teams in the top 10 from the Big Ten, and they actually just played the other night. And, that's a lot of competition. I really like to see that. As much as I hate the Michigan and Michigan State, seeing those good teams in the Big Ten be like that high up, it just serves to improve the resumes of other Big Ten teams, like Wisconsin getting a win over Michigan earlier in the season. So it's definitely, you'd rather see the Badgers up there, but when you have people they play doing that well, it just goes to show how much competition they have to play against, and when they do get those wins, it's really big for them.
I like that Michigan State's at 6. Virginia, that's probably my favorite team in the top 5. I also think that they've been tested the most in the most close games against ranked opponents. They lost to Duke by 2, which was their close game of the 2 when they played them, because then they lost by 10, I think, the next time. But I think Virginia going into March is looking very lethal with how much they've been battle tested and just in close games know how to fight through.
No, I definitely think Virginia is one of the top teams in the nation, and probably actually my favorite team is Kentucky in the top 25 and in the nation right now. I feel like they're almost the team to beat right now. But anyway, now I know Mason and both you and Noah have a few rants. I don't know who wants to start with their rant here for today.
I will start with my rant. It's you people comparing Zion Williamson to LeBron. You should just stop. Wake up, America. That's not a thing. You want to see how you can compare the two? Try looking up on YouTube something called LeBron College Highlights. You can't find it? That's because it doesn't exist. He went from prep to pro, straight to the NBA, all right? So, and look up his NBA first-year highlights. They're dominant. So once Zion starts doing that, I'll get into this conversation.
And also, I like that you bring up that prep to pro thing, because my rant comes at the draft rule. It's under scrutiny now, where a player has to have 1 year removed from high school in order for them to enter the NBA draft. And I think that as much as I hate to see a player like Zion go down, I think it had to happen for them to realize that it is a stupid rule. It turns into the NCAA. Even though it's an NBA rule, it turns a lot into the NCAA exploiting college athletes for something they can't control. They have to spend time in college, and they don't make any money, and they risk losing what might be their entire livelihood in an injury in somewhere that they might not even want to play. So I think it immediately needs to happen where high school players need to be able to go to the NBA.
All right, so that I think wraps everything up for today on Sports Talk Live. Tune in again next Tuesday at 2:15, and yeah.
All right.
Have a good rest of your weekend, everybody.
Yeah.